I'm good. Did you miss me?
I did a lot. A lot.
I really don't want to get your channel deleted, Reed. That you're asking for serious trouble if I answer that question.
Well, then stop fucking talking about us, man.
How much perceived value do you think we will lose?
Well, I mean, we lose a lot.
The establishment Republicans are not Republican in name only. That's what the GOP is.
So many people want everyone else to come to libertarianism the same way they did.
But the slave mentality is praised.
All right, thanks,
I want
Mike.
your phone to blow up with notifications every time the show is on. Thank you, Reed.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Naturalist Capitalist. I know it's been a little while. I was on vacation, and then I actually had surgery, and I'm fine now. Don't worry, it's nothing serious, but I was out for the count for a little while, but I am back. I'm back on the road. I'm not in prison. I'm just in a really shitty motel in the middle of nowhere in Nevada. But we've got a good guest on the other end. We got Addy Adds on the show. How you doing, Addy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, Mr. Coverdale Reed. Yeah, thank you for having me on the show. I'm doing great. I'm out in New York, actually, so that's a relief. I don't understand why people live there. But, I was just there doing work. I was covering the Ghislaine Maxwell trials, which we're going to talk about. So it's good to be a little further south, but I'm actually heading out again on Saturday. So just a little bit of a rest here before I'm on the move again.
Nice. So what I'm assuming a lot of my viewers know who you are, but some of them probably don't. So just give us a rundown on who you are, what you do, what got you into all this activism, what you've been covering before the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. Just who
Sure.
is Addy Adds?
Yeah. So Addy is from Wisconsin. Originally, I lived there for most of my youth. I moved to the island of Guam when I was actually like 17 because one of my parents got a job there. I finished high school there. Went back to Wisconsin for university, did quite a bit of traveling after graduation, and kind of fell into this by accident by way of creating a podcast where I was just initially setting out to interview high performers and then authors. And then that kind of morphed into covering geopolitics because I saw there was a huge demand for it, especially in the wake of 2020. Everybody's kind of locked down at home on the internet all the time, trying to figure out what's going on. So I jumped in, as much as I could, just reaching out to people and trying to figure out what actually is going on because I was never really big into politics growing up. I really was just occupied with sports mostly. And I almost actively disengaged or tried not to pay attention to it. Especially when I was like in high school and in college when I started reading it, I'd like read the New York Times every day for a very short period of time in high school. And then I stopped because I figured it was a waste of time. And then by the time I was a senior in college, it was Trump's, victory. And so I almost had to pay attention to it by then a bit. But it wasn't until like 2017, 2018, I started looking into the prison state and the corruption that really goes along with the prison state in the United Kingdom and the United States that I started to learn more about the general state corruption at a political level that more Americans would be interested in than just like learning about how corrupt our prisons are, for example. So that's kind of how I fell into this stuff. I never, thought I would be a journalist per se. I was, well, not always, but like held them in contempt a bit, especially recently because of, the way our mainstream media is set up. I never thought it was like difficult because I always wanted to be the guy that was doing the thing, not the guy that was writing about it or, so in that
Right.
sense, I failed miserably.
Yeah. So you seem like you're pretty nonpartisan, like you're just kind of looking into state corruption, which can, attract people from both sides of the aisle. And I mean, I'm a libertarian, but I try to focus on a lot of that stuff that kind of would bring everybody who cares about justice or, who's angry about war crimes or stuff like that. Is that pretty accurate that is what you kind of do? You try to stay away from the right left paradigm and try to just dig into this stuff for anyone who's interested?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, definitely at this point in time. I do say that, I've said a couple times before, I haven't really talked about it at length, but I do find the libertarian philosophy very appealing to me. Kind of, I don't know, it seems as close to live and let live as I've seen. So I definitely want to look into it deeper, but I can't say that I've read too deep on it yet. I know I interviewed Jason, I think it was Jason Bassler about it. He gave me a bunch of good books to look into, but I still haven't done that. So that's on me. So I got to do that this year in 2022. I'm going to read some more, uh, and just get back to reading more because it's hard to balance it with the traveling. But I am getting better at it, and yeah, I would say that's pretty true. I mean, I think I'm still a registered Democrat, to be honest, and I really, like I said, I wasn't paying attention. I'll come clean. I did vote for. This is how far gone I was. I voted for Clinton in 2016. It was.
Yeah.
That's how far gone I was. I was like, I mean, it was also like, I think my age too is just trying to figure stuff out. And not that I'm not still doing that, but I was just much less incentivized to pay attention to this. And another thing too, I think that's worthy to note is the University of Wisconsin is very liberal campus. I've heard it. This one journalist told me they described it as a red square, akin to the Soviet Union's red square, because the Capitol building is actually in a square. You walk up; it's pretty much at the peak of the isthmus between the lakes there, going up. So it's literally a square. So I thought that was kind of funny, but yeah, very liberal, and I think that definitely had a huge effect, not just geographically, but I think almost regardless of where you are on universities in the United States, there's a liberal bias, I would say, for sure. So
Yeah. So when it comes to the Epstein Maxwell case, were you on top of this like before Epstein got arrested or after he got arrested or like very recently? When did you start following this and when did you realize like how bad it was? Because for me, like I was, I remember in 2019 when when he got arrested and then he killed himself or whatever. And I wasn't really paying attention to it. I didn't really start paying attention to it until 2020. And then this year I've gotten way into it. So what was your timeline with finding this case and getting interested in it?
sure, yeah, it's a good question. I think it's for me it must have been early 2019 or late 2018, somewhere in there. But it was before he got arrested. I wasn't watching, like paying attention to it that closely, but I definitely was paying attention to it. Just because I would watch almost all of Sean Atwood's videos during that time period, like
Mhm.
religiously. I would go home from this really crappy customer service job and I'd kind of binge watch Sean Atwood videos for a bit. So he was covering it, and then I remember he predicted his death. He said he asked a question. I think he was like, "Is Bill Clinton going to is suicide?" I think he might have said Arkansas actually. Epstein in jail like a week before it happened, and then it happened, and his channel just went through the roof. I think, and fortunately, he didn't have too many problems with censorship until later. But yeah, so it was probably early 2019, maybe. I couldn't really tell you. It was around that time, or late 2018, maybe. But again, it was very loose. It wasn't like I was thinking about it even on a weekly basis. It was like if it would show up in a video, I would watch it. But uh, yeah, I started to realize, especially towards the end of 2019, I got into it deeper, and it was a process, I think, coming to terms with this information and understanding that it is true. It was like almost a denial at first, like a grieving process of sorts, where it's like, man, our government's really, really doing this. And in that sense, it took a few weeks, but then after that, it was like, man, I just want to learn more about it. And I don't know. I remember actually I hadn't thought about this probably since then, but this thought came to me. I was like, man, someone has to stop these people, because nobody's doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you amazed like how little everyone knows? Because I didn't know much, before 2019. I didn't know anything, I don't think, before 2019. And then, last year is when I really started digging into it. And 2020, I first started like kind of, poking at the surface. But then 2021, I actually got into it, and I was like, holy shit, this is so bad. This is so disgusting. This is so intertwined, and there's so much state backed funding going on here and everything. And no one knows anything about it. Like, the only people who seem to know a little bit are the Trump supporters. And, it's just because Bill Clinton went to Epstein's Island. That's the only reason they care. They don't realize that, Donald Trump was also involved, and they don't know anything about the Wexner Foundation or the, the mega group, or, Prince Andrew. I mean, no one knew like any of, how far spread this was and how deep it went. Have you been kind of shocked, like how little everyone knows, and how little, or have you been shocked, like, wow, how did I not know this? And then, whoa, how does no one still know about this?
Yeah, in a sense, it's been hard though, because it seems like a lot of people didn't hear about it until he got arrested for the second time. Which is understandable. It's
Right.
this isn't knowledge or information that they're advertising. They're actually actively doing the opposite of that. They're trying to suppress it. So, in that sense, it's I don't know. Yeah, I've had a few conversations. I think it was like once in a few nights in 2020 where I was talking to people close to me, and I was being very animated about expressing the, just my desire to talk about this issue a bit. I'm not sure how well it was received, but just the idea of this sort of blackmail of children and sex crimes, and how compromising it is, and how there's not really a time limit on that, or any point in time where that power is going to expire. So it would, it's something that it's hard to say, because it's almost like trying to remove yourself from an aquarium. Once you've gotten so deep into this, it's hard to, I think there's a cognitive bias. It's called the curse of knowledge bias. It's basically where humans have a hard time remembering what it was like to not know something. And it makes it hard to empathize with people who don't have the knowledge, and harder to teach it in a way.
Yeah. All right. So you went to the trial. What was like, how did that work? There were a few different rooms you could sit in and watch a TV screen, basically, right? Is that how it worked? Or
Yeah, it was the first floor, the fifth floor, and then I think they would go to the ninth floor. I had never been on the seventh floor. The first day I was on the ninth floor. I think every other day except two, I was on the fifth floor. The rest were I was on the first floor, I think 2 or 3 days. And there was somewhat different rooms, but the basic layout was the same. There was a judge's desk, and then a section for the jury, which was usually the best spot to watch it, because the chairs were much more comfortable than the pews, which was kind of for the general public. But there was a projector, pretty large, probably at least 50 inches, and then a TV next to it on the left, a HD TV. And then perpendicular to that, facing the jury box, was another TV. And then behind that, in sort of that square area there, in front of the judge's desk, or the back wall of the courtroom, the overflow courtrooms, was the speakers. Yeah, that's kind of how it went for every floor except the third floor, which had the actual courtroom itself, which I only ever got to really peek into. I was disallowed from going on a few occasions. Well, one of them, I had been gifted a spot in line by this person, and so I had the rightful spot in line to be in the physical courtroom that Maxwell was in, but they basically told me I couldn't go because I wasn't official press, quote unquote. And actually, the lady, I don't think I've said this before, who broke the Jurygate story, her name is Lucia Osborne Crowley. She was behind me in line, and because they did that, she got to go in the courtroom instead of me. So I was very sore about that. And then another day, I was not even allowed into the building itself, let alone the third floor room. And that was actually me re-entering the building after I had done an interview. I think I was on the Rundown Live, so I had to leave the courthouse. I went there pretty early in the morning, and then I left like midday. It was like around noon, And then I tried to come back around 3 or 4, and they wouldn't let me. So, but it wasn't just the independent media that was upset with the way this courtroom administration and experience went. Not to say they even discussed the way we experienced it, but I was just, I try to pay attention to everybody and see what's going on. And they complained about it. I guess Julie K. Brown had a very bad experience with the court administrator, or the head lead administrator. When she approached him and asked him a question, he immediately called court security or marshals, and almost had her thrown out, I guess, just for asking a question. This is according to her. And she called it, I think, the least professional experience in court of her career. And that's not to say whether the independent media had anything to do with that, but I think safe to say that most of the press were, if not all of the press, were very dissatisfied with how they were treated by the court.
So, what type of people did you see there, like other than news people? Were there a lot of random people who were just there to see what was going on? Because this was, if there was room, some of it was open to just the general public, whoever wanted to go there, right?
Yeah, anybody could walk in. You didn't need to be press. They just did that to us because they were, I think, being bullies, to be honest. Like they had seen our faces before, most, if not all of them, I think. And it was almost like there was like a Studio 54 vibe to it. If you weren't on the list, then you weren't going to get on, no matter what,
Right.
you could show up at 1:30 a.m. And it wouldn't matter. But yeah, to answer your question, there was definitely passerby that would ask, "Hey, what's going on?" And I think almost all of them recognized the name. I don't know if there was anyone that I saw that was like, "Oh, I don't know who that is." They all. I think a lot of them would ask, like, "Hey, what's going on?" Because they would see the hubbub around the courthouse. On the first day, there was people in a tent. They were like smoking weed in a tent, like literally right in front of the steps of the courthouse. I probably should have gotten video of that, but I think we were about to enter. I can't remember exactly what's going on there. It's pretty hectic on the first day. Lots of people there. There was a line like down the block. Definitely the most media, I would say, were on the first day. And then there was a lull there right before the prosecution said they were going to resume or end their arguments at the end of the second week there, which was the Friday. Then a bunch of people started showing up. But on that Tuesday, someone I know showed up at 7:30 a.m. and was able to get in. Independent media too. So that's how much like everyone was like, I don't know if they were sleepwalking or what. Everyone thought I was going to go 6 weeks automatically, and then all of a sudden on day 8, the prosecution says they're going to arrest. So that was definitely a surprise. But there was a couple protesters who showed up more than once, which I think I posted most of them on my Twitter and other socials, mostly, Twitter and Facebook. And I've been posting on my Instagram more just because, I don't know, I was just like, F it, man. I have like nobody following me. And I always thought you were only supposed to post like once a day, but I've been posting like 2 times and 3 times a day now. So it's been working out, I think. But yeah, there was this lady that would protest a few times. She had a problem with, I think it might have been the Eastern District in New York, but something to do with a local dermatologist. And she like brought the file or like the case there, like the front sheet of like, plaintiff versus defendant. So she was protesting that. And as far as other people, the one morning I got there at like it was like 4:30 or 4:45 a.m. There was and this lady actually wrote a story about it, not just meeting me, but these other people. They were from California, I think. They were on vacation, and there was like 2 couples, and one of the ladies was like, I want to go see the Maxwell trial. So they traveled to New York and showed up, and that was the same morning that I just woke up at like 3:50, and I was like wide awake. I was like, I might as well just go. I'm not going to get any more awake than I am now.
Right.
So I went there, and I was like, man, I was surprised because there was already about a dozen people there. I was like, man, I got here this early and I'm probably still not going to get in. But her name is Amanda Darrach, I believe, Darrach. She writes for the Columbia I think it's called the Journalism Review. So she like writes about other writers and reporters instead of having a topic or a story. So it's kind of interesting in that sense. But so she wrote a bit about the morning there. If people want to read it, I'll tweet it out. I shared it on a podcast a few days ago, but I don't think I've tweeted it out yet. But that was interesting meeting the citizens that came from California, because they were just I I don't know, maybe there was something deeper there. They weren't just citizens, but I never rule anything out. They seemed pretty innocent enough to me, though. So
Mhm. So what really stuck out to you about the prosecution? The biggest thing I heard was Annie Farmer's testimony, but were there any other really big moments throughout that time that really stick out?
yeah, you mean the performance of the prosecution, or the witness testimonies, or both?
Both.
Yeah, sure. I would say for the prosecution's high moments were Comey had one, maybe two. I didn't see the Caroline's witness Caroline's redirect. So they have the examination, cross examination, and then redirect. And Joe Neerman, who's a New York litigator, good logic on YouTube. He described it as art, and I left. I'm not gonna lie, I was like falling asleep. But at the same time, I think I had an interview or something. I can't remember exactly what was going on that day. I think it was a Wednesday, but nonetheless, I didn't see her redirect. But I thought Laura Pomerantz had a very good moment against the supposed star witness for Ghislaine Maxwell's team, which was this academic Elizabeth Loftus, who's never actually had patients before. The false memories syndrome, a studies lady, the science of false memories, kind of her expertise, or how memories may be formulated falsely, or damaged in some way. So they went over all these concepts, and they even brought out a chalkboard where there was like three rectangles connected by two lines, and she had to like draw it out. I don't know why she couldn't just describe it, but maybe to make it seem more complicated or something. But in that sense, I thought Pomerantz did a good job of dismantling her. She brought up Harvey Weinstein, for example, which is kind of maybe a shot below the belt legally speaking. Judge Nathan called a sidebar immediately, and after that, none of her past work was brought up. For example, with Ted Bundy, Ted Bundy, a plethora of the Legion of Doom, I think Sam Tripoli called it. It was like the police officers that beat up Rodney King, Ted Bundy, Harvey Weinstein. What was it? The Robert Durst, I want to say as well, who just died, I think yesterday actually, or maybe it was today.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah. So she was there, I think, for only one of the murder trials, but she has a book called Witness for the Defense. So I thought Pomerantz did a great job bringing that up. How she doesn't have a book, for example, entitled Impartial Witness. So I thought that was pretty cheeky. But as far as the witnesses, I thought Annie Farmer was one of the more credible witnesses, certainly, but not the most legally damning. Definitely not. I think she's probably the smartest, the most composed, probably as well. But as far as like legally damning, I wouldn't say so. It was, it's hard to, well, maybe not. I'm not a lawyer, but it's really what comes down to is what the jury thinks. Are they swayed? What are they swayed by? Is it do they really break it down legally, or is it more so persuasion and emotion and oratory? So it's like a balance there where, like Caroline, I thought was more sympathetic and more likely to evoke an emotional response from people, certainly than Annie Farmer, and definitely more so than Jane, at least in my eyes. I mean, I wasn't. She cried, but maybe she didn't cry. I don't know. Myself and at least one other person were like, I'm not sure if she's actually crying. That was the actress who, I'll just say her name. Her name is Nadia Bjorlin. She's in Days of Our Lives. The trial's over now, so I'm going to say it. I mean, we got jurors coming out causing Jurygate. So I'm going to say Nadia Bjorlin's name. But yeah, Scotty David, he came out and disclosed sexual abuse, and there's two other outlets. I think it was ABC and maybe there's the New York Times. They said there was two other jurors that did the same. I think that might be fake news. I'm not really sure. I mean, we've seen the video of Scotty David like being interviewed, but it seems like they were just like dogpiling on that whole idea to try to force a mistrial. I think the mainstream media wants that on behalf of their masters.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone I was talking to, or most everyone I was talking to before the verdict, they were not optimistic. They were like thinking she wasn't going to get charged, or she wasn't going to get convicted of much. Some people were even saying she might walk. Is that what a lot of people were thinking who were watching the trial too? Was it really shocking when she got convicted on 5 out of 6 charges, or was it kind of like, yeah, obviously, or what was the feeling coming away from that?
Yeah, I was surprised a bit, I would say. It was, I don't know, it was so weird. I was so nervous right when I figured out what was going on. I got there really late because I just switched lodging that morning. And then I was kind of taking my time a bit, but I also had to interview somebody at like 1 or so, and I had to feed the cat. I had to get the next pet sitter squared away. So I didn't leave the house until like 3 or something. And then I went to Cooper Union. I did a short video about the Epstein brothers' history of Cooper Union. I got to the courthouse, and I did a video, and then all of a sudden, all the photographers and videographers are like coming around the side where the lawyers and the siblings enter on Pearl Street. And I was like, "What's the scoop?" to this one guy, and he didn't respond. I was like, "Come on, man! I thought we had some sort of rapport here, working rapport, but I guess not." But luckily, Joe Neerman showed up like 10 seconds later, and he was like super. His energy was so up, and I was like, "Yo, what's going on?" Like, and he's like, "Yo, the Inner City Press just tweeted 2 minutes ago the verdict. They have a verdict." So I went, through the courthouse, and I was like so jacked. I was like all like nervous going through security. The first floor was full, but I tried very quickly. I probably should have just went to the 5th floor. I went to the 5th floor. There was only like 4 people, maybe 5 people in there, and all but one of them had a cell phone, so they had some sort of special privilege to have a cell phone in the courthouse, whether it was they were working for the court administratively or they were, I think, directly connected to the case as well. I'm not 100% sure about why they got a cell phone. I tried talking to them, the people who had the cell phones, and they didn't want to talk at all. Maybe they're spooks, I don't know, but they didn't want to talk to me. And the other person was actually the lady from the Inquirer, who actually featured me in a story this week. She told me, funnily enough. I'm not sure if that was today or not, but she said it was sometime this week in print. So that was kind of interesting. So just 2 reporters in there. And, Judge Nathan is reading off the verdict as I walk in, double checking with the jurors. Is this your verdict? Guilty, et cetera, et cetera. The enticement charge was the only one not to stick, which I was surprised at. I'm an amateur and this is my first trial, but I thought that one would for sure stick, if any of them. But it was the least likely. But I've been told by more than one person that it's so hard to guess what how or why the jury are thinking the way they're thinking. So in that sense, I was wrong, but it was actually I think a good thing because the conspiracy and then the transporting charges, those stuck, which I think is much more important that those did. It was, and then I exited the building shortly after. Her name was Jackie from the Inquirer. I immediately went up to the screen. I wanted to see Maxwell's reaction. It was very stoic. Somebody else agreed with me too. It almost seemed like she was expecting it. Maybe she's just, very good at lying to herself. I think she's a clinical narcissist, and they're very good at lying to themselves about many things, but including how they feel, I would say. So it's tough to say what exactly she was feeling, but she throughout the trial portrayed a lot of confidence, borderline arrogance, and even according to a couple women who spoke to me, they thought she was being almost like seductive in a way at certain points, more so earlier in the trial than in the latter parts. But yeah, then I really posted the video on Twitter when I walked down the courthouse. But yeah, to answer your question more succinctly, it was a surprise for me for sure. I was right in the sense that it was a mixed verdict. That was my prediction, but I was guessing more like 3 or 4.
Mhm.
You know, I wasn't guessing 5, but if things were the way they should be, she would have been charged with what 20 or 30 more counts of something
Right.
both thrown at her. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So in that sense, it was like a bittersweet victory, maybe. But we'll see. It's still up in the air now with this jury. So with this jury gate.
Yeah. So, do you know anything about this Scotty David guy? I know he's connected to Carlisle somehow, and I know that's causing a stir. Some people are like, "Oh, this was the the plan all along," or whatever. But do you know anything beyond the surface about him? Or
I know he has an apartment in it's like Midtown Manhattan. Uh, I know where he lives. I know he deleted his social media very recently. Most of his social media. The rumor is that someone messaged Lucia Crowley and sent her the Instagram profile of Scotty David, and that's how they got in touch. I don't know if that's true or if that's just hearsay, smoke and mirrors. That's the rumor that's going around. I don't have that verified, but we don't. That's what I want to know is how they got in touch. Was it through Vicky Ward? That was something I speculated.
yeah,
But he's I want to say it was the Daily Mail. They did an interview with him, but it was definitely the Independent that first broke it. But he did do a video interview. He's what is he? Mid-30s, 35, 36. I can't remember exactly. A white male. He works at the Carlisle Group. And surprisingly, too, I guess he got permission to do the interview from the Carlisle Group, which is a bit bizarre considering, juries, they have anonymity unless they don't want to. So I don't know why they would be notified of that ahead of time, but um, many people are speculating, I think, about that connection. Frank Carlucci, ex-deputy CIA director, was the chairman of the Carlyle Group, for example, for over a decade. And I'm not a Carlyle Group expert, but there's many more connections than just that run deep in the international web, not just here in the States.
yeah. So, why legally does that change anything that he was a victim of sexual abuse when he didn't say it before? So, I was reading a little bit about it, and I guess the questionnaire wasn't 100% clear or something, is what he was saying. And then, but why does this actually change anything? Why, in legal structure, does this maybe call for a retrial?
Yeah, that actually brings up the most recent update legally, as far as I know, about this case, and that's that. Well, backing up a little bit, he had some public counsel, which I guess he asked for. I guess he wasn't appointed it, which that was our understanding initially, but then he discarded that and got his own private counsel instead. So he lawyered up, basically. But more recently, I think it was yesterday, he requested the questionnaire. The lawyers had until today, so the deadline has passed for that, to propose redactions for the questionnaire. So anything they want redacted, they have until next week today. So Wednesday of next week, or is today Thursday? Thursday next week, to respond to Scotty David and his lawyer, as far as what exactly they asked on that questionnaire. But the reason for it is because, in the eyes of the defense, someone who is a victim of sexual abuse or has a history of being abused sexually, especially as a child, in this case, is more likely to be biased against the defendant, right? So you want as impartial a juror as possible. So they provide these questionnaires, which I understand are individual to each case. They change them from case to case. I'm sure there's some questions they ask every juror, but depending on the crime, the defendant, they're going to look at the demographics of the jury as well. Are you rich? Are you poor? Are you man? Are you woman? Are you gay? Are you straight? Because all these things, they do influence, whether we want to admit it or not, they influence the way we view the world and what our biases are. So in that sense, they want a very balanced view and outlooks and demographics in the jury to give the fairest chance possible to the defendant, which I think is a good thing, actually, about the United States.
So isn't the prosecution saying they'll drop the perjury charges if there is not a retrial? I've seen some stuff out there about that.
Yeah. So in that sense, Ghislaine is already, she's already won something, right?
Right.
Because if she doesn't get a new trial, which is what she wants, let's be clear,
Sure.
she is going to at least get the perjury charges dropped. But in effect, it really doesn't change much. She still possibly could be locked away for life, even if she doesn't, even if nobody gives any care in the world about those perjury charges, legally or otherwise. So in that sense, it's a win, but it's a win for us too, I would say, because I said this earlier tonight, she does seem to be picking her battles. I guess there's 8 names involved with a certain lawsuit. I think it was Giuffre's against Maxwell, that Maxwell now is saying, I don't care if you redact them or not, basically. I'm leaving them in the hands of the court. So in that sense, perhaps we'll get some new names, some new big names, possibly. Or we might just get more corroboration for some names we've already heard. So in that sense, it seems like she's picking her battles. She's like taking the small victory and being like, okay, I don't care about that. But, why would that be? Does she feel like it's going to help her case for getting a new trial? Not formally, but maybe just as a token of goodwill towards the court. I don't know. It's tough to say.
Yeah. So I saw on Twitter there was this big buzz about how the case was being sealed and it wasn't going to be revisited. And I saw Ryan Dawson saying that's not true. She can still testify. Nothing is over. Do you know anything about that? Where did that rumor start? And, is it complete bullshit? Could this always be revisited?
It might have been Jack Posobiec. I don't know, for all I know. Yeah, I heard about that. It seemed to me, this is my subjective experience, that rumor like rose and then was quashed before I even realized it,
Okay.
which sometimes happens. But yeah, I did hear about that. I think it was actually after the fact. Somebody said that, and I was like, "What? I didn't know that." And then they're like, "No, that's that. It's as it sounds. It's fake news." So I'm not sure
Right.
where that came from. I know somebody said Posobiec spread some rumor towards the end of the trial. I don't know if it was that one, but he definitely spread a couple fake news things. But he wasn't the only one. There's this guy, Adam Baldwin, who said something about the court not allowing press. And Tim Kennedy actually shared that, which is kind of weird. The MMA guy, the special ops guy, he shared that. So yeah, I think it was quite a bit of misinfo. Maybe it was disinfo. I don't know. It's tough to measure people's intentions, but yeah, surrounding this trial for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems like you have that with everything like the Project Veritas thing that just came out about COVID and then it didn't come out. Like we're still waiting to hear about it. Like you just have a lot of people who, they want something to be a certain way. So they'll just start spreading news that it is that way before it actually has been confirmed that it is that way. It's just kind of what you run into with this type of stuff, I guess. I don't know. But
yeah, I think sometimes, and I think sometimes too, like guys like Posobiec, they just like they see a parade or something, or like a group of people, and like they just go and like I'm speaking metaphor here. They just grab the mic or the megaphone from whoever is speaking, and they just like take over the group and start yelling, "Follow me on Twitter," or whatever. Instead of going actually deep into something, which and it does seem too like some of those Twitter guys, which I don't have to name them all, but it's just a type of behavior on Twitter, let's say, that I've noticed where people just try to provoke just to get views. It's like they kind of pretend to be conservative, but really they're just trying to troll everyone.
yeah, for sure. So do you come away from this trial positively as far as, people starting to pay attention to this more? I feel like this did get a lot of mainstream attention after the fact. Like I felt like during the trial, almost no one knew it was going on. But once she got convicted, a lot of people were like, whoa, this is crazy. And I'm hoping that it kind of pushes them in the direction of trying to uncover more about what was going on, because, you know, some people thought like, oh, this is justice. It's done. It's over. Maxwell and Epstein are gone. None of this is happening anymore, you know, which is obviously not the case. But do you think that there's hope that people are going to start looking into this more? Did this bring enough light to the situation that normies were like, whoa, what's going on here? Or do you think it's kind of just the same as it's always been?
Yeah, you know, if I had to guess, it seems like people are more aware of this than ever. It's again, it's tough for me to say because I think partially because I'm younger, and also because I'm so deep into this. Like I said, it's hard to kind of take myself out of it objectively and think about what other people are thinking. I don't know. I mean, I hope I've had, you know, an influence positively on, you know, peers I've had or people I've known in the past, just by maybe stuff they might have seen of what I've posted on the internet. But at the same time, I've also lost a lot of acquaintances who used to follow me on social media and such because of the stuff that I've posted over the past, you know, year and a half or 2 years. So, you know, it's that's fine though. I think as long as you're speaking your truth and speaking when you think is true, and being open-minded and humble, willing to admit when you're wrong, which I think is quite rare actually. Most people don't want to, especially with, you know, the type of world we live in today, where it seems like everything's recorded. You know, it's harder to admit like, okay, yeah, you have a video of me saying something stupid, or I said something I no longer agree with what I said. Then, I think that can be difficult for people sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, humility, and especially being willing to say I don't know, or I'm not well informed on this subject or whatever, instead of like pretending that you're an expert on something and then, you know,
Yes.
just trying to
Yeah.
use it to draw attention, and then you get to a place where like, holy shit, I actually don't know like anything about this, you know,
Right.
like that's
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
dangerous.
It's pretty rare to find someone who says, I think that says, I just don't know. You know, it's kind of obnoxious, to be honest. It really annoys me when people, conversationally, it's like a pet peeve, let's say, you know, where it's like, man, just say, I can tell you don't know, but you're not saying you don't know.
Yeah.
You're trying to tell me something else, you know, and I think you can tell when people are doing that.
Yeah. So we'll get into Prince Andrew in a minute, but are there any other names that have become more mainstream that were involved with this? You mentioned Harvey Weinstein, but is there anyone else who has kind of come to the surface that people are more aware of now, do you think?
I think the new name in the trial, at least to my knowledge, is Fidel Castro. That was, I think, a surprise to everyone. The fact that Epstein knew Fidel Castro, and he had a picture with Fidel Castro in his 71st Street apartment there, 90 71st Street, right by Central Park, actually. So that one was new, but you know, others mentioned in the trial itself were I think ones we've heard before. Is, you know, Spacey, Trump, Clinton. I think, I don't even know if Andrew was officially named, but it was like an unnamed member of the royal family. And it was like everybody knew who that was, right?
Right.
So in the sense of the names coming out of the trial itself, that was, I think, the biggest surprise, at least for me, if not most people, was Castro. Outside of it, one that I found surprising was Stephen Dunbar Johnson, who's still the current president of the New York Times. He was in Epstein's Black Book. Might give him a visit next time I return to New York. And then there's this other guy. He's from Norway, which I had only ever seen written. I hadn't seen anybody. I came across it in my own research, but I hadn't seen anybody speak about it. Not anybody. As far as I know, I might have missed a video or two where somebody mentioned it. But there's this Norwegian guy. His name is Terry Rod Larsen. He received a personal loan from Jeffrey Epstein to the amount of $130,000, and he's coming under fire to a certain degree because of that. And I guess I'm not really sure how UN positions work, but I guess they have monthly rotations sometimes. and like the head of security or something, security relations for the UN, something like that. Her name is Mona Yule, and she's from Norway's. She's filling that position for Norway right now, and she's the wife of Terry Rod Larsen, and that's for this month. It's pretty bizarre that it goes like that. So, but until I saw Matthew Russell Lee of Inner City Press, who I think has done fantastic job covering Ghislaine Maxwell. He mentioned it, and I was like, oh man, I had only ever read that before. I hadn't heard anybody report on that, so I thought that was pretty cool. So that was another name that I think is much less well known than a lot of Epstein's contacts.
Yeah, so I was reading just today about Prince Andrew, and a judge approved a lawsuit to go ahead against him for being involved with Epstein from Virginia DeFray, and he's losing his royal privileges, his royal titles. So he might be going down. What do you think? Are you optimistic about him ending up indicted and in the slammer? What do you think?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, and I included my podcast too today. Some people are happy about it. I saw one opinion that was pretty interesting. They expressed that they wished he kept his titles because the only reason they're revoking them is because it brings disgrace or a bad name to the family. So they remove that connection, then they remove the stain to a certain degree. So in that sense, I don't know. It goes to a deeper issue, I think. But I can't really say I know what the mood is like in the United Kingdom, with regards to who are royalists or monarchists or who are not. There might be surveys out there on that. I don't understand it personally. I have a hard time communicating with royalists. I'll be honest about that. I just don't understand it. It's almost accepting your inferiority to another in a really crude way. So I don't know. I mean, maybe people still support the royal family in Britain. I'm not really sure.
Yeah. So I saw some videos of you confronting people when they were coming in and out of the courthouse, the Maxwell siblings. I saw you talking to one of them. What was that like? Was that was your heart pounding a million times per second, or what was that like?
Yeah, there were a few days that I was pretty nervous. I think maybe towards the beginning more so, but maybe it wasn't even the first time. Maybe it was like the second or third time I was more so nervous. But yeah, I mean, honestly, the hardest part about the whole process was waking up and getting there on time. It wasn't talking to people, and I think part of that is I've traveled quite a bit and made a conscious effort to approach people, make cold approaches to people, and just start talking to them. And for sure, you get completely rejected, Dikembe Mutombo style, but then you learn how to talk to people from different cultures, and how to make people feel comfortable with you and get over that fear of, people treating you a certain way, which definitely happened over the course of the trial, for sure it did. Funny enough, the person who did it later, he became friendly with me, and it was one of the, anyways, we worked together later in the trial. So I thought that was interesting because initially he was kind of rude to me a bit, but I think when he saw that I showed up every single day, I think that got some respect from him. So that was kind of cool to see.
Yeah, man, you've done a great job. Like, you were really keeping us informed as to what was going on Twitter, just seeing the videos come out and the summaries come out. Is there anywhere that people can go see a detailed account of what happened? Do you have podcasts where you laid it out day by day or anything, or how can people really follow that if they want to?
Yeah, I have my Epstein Files podcast, which is where I uploaded all my broadcasts on the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. If you prefer seeing the videos, you go to rockfin.com/Addy Adds, ADDYADDS. And then my Twitter videos that I posted are still up. As you mentioned, I approached Isabel Maxwell and Kevin Maxwell several times, asking them about, questions about atomic bomb intelligence being sold via the Promise software and Digem
Right.
to their father. I asked them about blackmail, through ComTouch and Siren and software with backdoors to Israeli intelligence. Isabel Maxwell gave me a pizza. She gave me some pizza one night. It was like the last week of the trial. That was kind of cool because I didn't have to buy dinner that night. And some homeless guys got some pizza too, so that was a good thing. I want to be clear. I gave the homeless guys the pizza. Isabel Maxwell just threw pizza on the sidewalk and walked away. So I want to be clear about that one. Yeah, and then Spreaker is where I upload my podcast to, but it should be Spotify, iTunes. I'm on YouTube, but I tend to not send people that way anymore, just because it tends to be an attentional black hole, because inevitably my channel gets terminated. So in that sense, I don't send people there. I just made a Getter. I saw you're on Getter too, Reed. I just followed you this week.
I've been trying to get kicked off, but you can't. They just delete your posts instead. I've done everything I can to get banned, but I've probably had like, honestly, over like 20 posts taken down by now. And the funny thing is, they don't tell you when they take your post down. It's very CCP like. They just disappear your post instead of like letting you know that they've taken them down. So you'll just be scrolling through and you're like, wait, fuck, where's that post I made about Ben Shapiro or about whoever. You just go after different golden calves, and on that Twitter they'll go after you. But
so were you just testing it to see the limit of what you could get away with? Or
I mean, I was going pretty hard in the paint. But what they would do, the clearest thing I've come away with is if you say like faggot or retard or whatever. If that's all you say, like if I said Addy Adds is a retard, like it wouldn't take that down. So they don't take things down for just using slurs. But if I say like Steve Bannon is a retard, then it gets taken down. So like, it seems like they use the slurs as an excuse if you're saying something politically charged, but if you're just saying slurs, they don't take it down. So I don't know. Like it was interesting. It was fun experimenting. I got a lot of followers from just trying to get banned. It was pretty fun.
Maybe I should do that, because I have like 12 followers over there. I should just use it as a diary to a certain, like a geopolitical diary, where it's like, this is what I want to say that I tend to not say on other places, and just see what happens.
Yeah, man. Thanks for the super chat, P1 Dizzy. Hey guys, can you please share your Cash App links? Thank you both for your continued work. Stay frosty, free Palestine. We are Ryan Dawson. I don't have a Cash App. I do have a Patreon though. You can find me at Patreon Reed Coverdale. But do you have a place where people can support you or?
Oh yeah, I do have Cash App. I have Venmo. I have Patreon. I'm just scared to send people there because what happened to Ryan? # We Are Ryan Dawson.
Right.
I have Subscribestar. I have this new one I got, which I'll refer you, Reed, if you don't have it. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. I really like, because you don't have to be American, because for like Venmo and Cash App, I think you need a U.S. bank account. But Buy Me a Coffee, you can send like pounds and other currencies, so that's pretty cool. And then I have a PayPal. I try not to send people there. It's kind of like the YouTube of my donations is PayPal, because they shave off a bit, I think, off the top. So I try not to send people there. But then another thing too, which are you on Rockfin, Reed?
I'm not on Rockfin. I got to diversify. I'm on Odyssey, but
okay. I'll send you a referral. I'll try to get you on Rockfin if you want it. Because they can use.
I need to. I need to expand. So
they send tips there, and you can actually tip or super chat even after the live stream is ended. So that's kind of convenient, because then you're not just confined to the time that you're streaming itself. So that's another place. Do you know how to? Because I saw on Twitter that don't they have tipping on Twitter now? I actually don't have that, but I can't even live stream on Twitter. They don't let me do that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna try it because I'm not even supposed to be on Twitter, because I already got banned once.
Oh,
so
that's right.
I'm not gonna fuck around with any of that stuff on Twitter. But
yeah. Oh, do I still correspond with George? I do, actually. I'm trying to meet up with him in Florida. I don't know if our schedules are going to align though. just with the way things transpired this week. I actually have to go to Atlanta. So I'm giving my schedule away a bit here, people. I'm not going to say when exactly I'm leaving, but it's going to be soon. And I'm going to be down in Georgia and then Florida after that. So hopefully our paths cross. But yeah, definitely still in touch with GW. He's the man.
Yeah, and thank you, Jess, for that super chat. All right, man. Well, thank you very much for coming on. I'll have to get you back on again. We'll have to do the Four Horsemen sometime. You're certainly cut out for that. But are there any other places people can follow you, or anything else you want to bring up you're doing in the near future, or anything like that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I will. Oh, first off, Ryan invited me to that meetup in March, so I might see you there, right?
So we'll see each other in person. Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay.
Me and Eric will both. Maybe you'll have to be our March Four Horsemen. We just do it live in person in DC.
Yeah. Let's do it. That would be fun. Because I'm actually in North Carolina right now. So I'm definitely have gotten to know it a lot better over the last 6 to 8 months or so. Cool states, the Carolinas. I really cool. I'm from Wisconsin myself. Where are you from, Reed?
From New Hampshire, living in Utah now, but yeah, born and raised in New Hampshire. So.
Okay, sweet. I'm sure we'll get into that deep on my show, because I want to get you on my show at some point. But I also have a book, just to do a couple more plugs here before we wrap up. It's called Public Intelligence. The new edition is coming out soon. I formatted it in a way that it talks about the historical background of intelligence agencies and their influence on media, and how new media is evolving thanks to people like Reed and GW, George Webb, and other people. So many, like Ryan Dawson is a pioneer. There's a chapter on Ryan Dawson in the book. And I think for that chapter, I use photography by Peter Duke. So, just expounding on this new media, and I kind of see it as a crowdsourced intelligence agency for people, which also includes whistleblowers like Sibel Edmonds, or any whistleblower, John Kiriakou. I haven't written about him, but that's just an example. So, I've had work featured in the Gateway Pundit and Unlimited Hangout for my election coverage and Epstein coverage, consequently. 8 channels terminated by YouTube. And yeah, I've been following Reed's podcast for a while now. You got awesome guests, man. I'm jealous, man. You get the best guests. So shout out to, and he also introduced me to Dave Smith, Dave Smith, right?
Yep, Dave Smith.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to vote for him next year, next election.
Me too, man. Yeah, everybody, the Four Horsemen is on Sunday, I think at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and James Corbett is our fourth horseman, so that's going to be fucking insane, so make sure you're tuned in for that. And Addy, we'll do this again. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Reed. Anytime.